Welcome to episode 9, Study Tips. Let's talk about studying. So a major part of studying really happens in our preparation for class, if you have the capacity. When you're reading before class, I would encourage you to read twice if you can. Once to get the overview of the information, and a second time for any specific details. The other thing I would encourage you to do, if you're able to do a second read, but you could do this with the overview, is to write any questions or any thoughts in the margin, whether you're like having your work printed, like if you're reading from something printed, or even on your computer, put sticky notes. But write any questions you might have for class, write any connecting points, write anything that's of interest to you, but just, write some notes as you're reading. Next thing we're doing when we're thinking about study tips is we're breaking down our major or minor assignments. So what does that mean? So let's say you have tests in your course, right? In one of your courses. You want to ask whether you're asking your professor, a former student in the class, or you're just looking online, but we're paying attention to what types of questions will be asked on our major tests. You're also wanting to think about what specific topics will be addressed. That's why we go back to our course calendar, because usually in your course calendar, not every professor is like this, but often the weeks have headings. And so you just want to make sure. Next, maybe you're needing a study guide. If there's no study guide provided, you will have to create one. And so you just want to make sure that you're clear that does a study guide exist? If it doesn't, you'll plan to create one and create the space for that. And also, are there any study sessions to attend? Next, thinking about study tips, thinking about community, thinking about connecting with our peers, make friends to study with. So here's an example that I want to share with you. This is a strategy I use with students when we would have long novels to read. I'm talking off the cuff. Let's say I had a group of 20 students. Really, I had 19, but we'll just say 20 for this example. And let's say they're reading 8 chapters that week. So what I would do is I would have groups of 5 students read 2 chapters. So it might be one group reading 1 and 2, another group reading 3 and 4, another group reading chapters 5 and 6, another group reading chapters 7 and 8. And then I would have them write summaries for their work for the next class. Then, when it came to class, I created more groups where there would be one person, at least one person, that represented all of the chapters. So in one group, let's say group 1, I would have someone who read chapters 1 and 2, did the summaries. 3 and 4, 5 and 6, you get it, right? And so that's the same thing that you can do when you study. Of course, everyone is reading before class, but you all, as you're creating study groups, you all can divide the topics that are either of most interest to you or however you want to divide it. And so when you come together, you all can teach each other what you learned and pull your notes together. And really, that's how you can create a study guide. The other thing we're thinking about with study tips, a lot of these study tips are really breaking down our assessments and how they're constructed. We're also noticing specifically how our assessments are constructed. So we're paying attention to how are the questions worded. We're not just looking at true and false, but what information is found in our tests, in our quizzes. And so I would say this piece, notice how your assessments are constructed. This is after you've had an assignment. After you've done a test or a quiz, after you've taken one. So you might not be able to do this ahead of time, but once you get your test back, quiz back, notice how the questions are worded. What kind of information is constructed? Is the quiz or test constructed in a way where your professor might be jumping around with topics? Or are they going in a specific order? Are they going chapter by chapter? Are they going a specific topic by topic? And that will be important for you to pay attention to moving forward. And then finally, which I've already shared, but it's understood that you're reviewing all of your tests, your quizzes, all of your major minor assignments. And if you're unclear about the grade, I would invite you to ask your professor about it. Now, here's a big caveat, y'all. A huge caveat with that. But one thing you can't assume when you're asking about the grading practice, that your grade will be changed. This is not an opportunity for you to negotiate your grade with your faculty member. This is not an opportunity for you to ask for additional points. This is an opportunity, particularly early in the semester, where you're wanting to be clear that you all are on the same page about grading. For example, let's say you had a short answer on your test and you realize that you only wrote 2 sentences and they expected you to write 2 paragraphs. So we want to make sure that you're clear on that. Or let's say they use a rubric and you didn't realize that a rubric was used. And so this is where we have those really very direct and clear grading practice conversation. Now, sometimes where maybe you did indeed get the wrong grade, right? I'm not minimizing that for you at all. What I'm saying is this conversation about grading practice is more about you seeking understanding about how the work is assessed. This is another learning opportunity. And you can look online and see all kinds of different studying tips, but these are just a few things that might be helpful to you. That's all we have for this episode. As we say here at Boosie Teaches, in a galaxy of learners, Boosie Teaches lights the way. I'll see you in the next episode.